welcome back. This is Close the Fuck Enough, a cooking show for the rest of us. Last week, I ran a poll asking what you wanted to see me cook with next. And despite only having a subscriber list in the single digits, you guys turned out and you voted for lemons. So, today, we are going to make my uranium yellow cake squares. What makes these yellow cake squares fissionable material, you might ask? Carolina Reapers, the spiciest commercially available pepper known to man. Now, I actually grew these last year, and peppers are great because if you're not going to use them right away, they last in the freezer pretty much forever. So the first thing we need to do is dice up our pepper super fine because it's actually going straight into the batter, and you don't want large chunks in there. You want it diced as finely as possible so it spreads as evenly as possible throughout the batter. The first thing you need to know before cooking with a Carolina Reaper is that if you're not careful, they can and will hurt you. They rate over 1 million units on the Scoville Heat Index. And so what that means is the oils that these peppers naturally excrete, when they come into contact with your skin, if you are sensitive, they can irritate your skin. But the more likely and much more painful scenario is if you happen to put your hands to your face, rub your eye, something like that. Capsaicin, aside from being what makes peppers spicy, is also the main ingredient in pepper spray, which is where it gets its name. So, before we do anything with this pepper, take it from somebody who's learned the hard way, you need to put on gloves. Now, what this does, twofold, it reminds you to take, you remember to take your glove off afterwards. But more importantly, it reminds you to wash your hands before touching your face. Now, unfortunately for me, these aren't fitting because they're for my roommate. But I will be very, very careful, and we will dice up our pepper, and I will wash my hands, and I will not touch my eyes, and neither will you. Okay, medium gloves on large hands, as we say in the title, close the fuck enough. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I grew and harvested these last season. So, if they look a little deflated and a little wrinkly and a little wilty, they are because they've been in the freezer. However, since we're baking with them and they're going to just get incorporated into a batter, it doesn't matter what they look like. It matters what they taste like. A lot of your fancier cooking shows, your Iron Chefs, your Chopped, what have you, you'll hear the judges talk about taking the flesh out of the pepper. The white bits. Well, that is where the capsaicin lives. And that is actually why we want these peppers. We want the spice. We don't just want the bright floral flavor of a pepper and a hint of spice. We want the spice to punch us in the face. So we're keeping all of it. Now, these Carolina Reapers from last season, they're a little small, they're a little stunted, so even though my recipe calls for 1 Carolina Reaper, I'm actually going to use all of these today. And you can see just how tightly I am dicing these, okay? When the bits start to get just into indiscriminate mush, that's kind of where you want it, because that's going to spread through a batter evenly and give the flavor all throughout. You don't want to have, a really mild corner piece and then a really spicy center square. You want it to feel and taste exactly the same all throughout. Now, if you're unfamiliar with peppers, another thing you should know, and this one is a great example, is that they change colors. So if you go into the supermarket and you see green jalapenos and you see red jalapenos, that's not 2 different breeds of jalapenos. It's the same pepper picked at different stages of its life, just like green tea versus black tea. A green jalapeno is not as spicy as a red jalapeno. Alright, that is what we're looking for. That is finely diced enough. Okay, it's important to note that even though I was wearing gloves, I washed my hands before using the remote to stop the camera or moving this camera, because capsaicin oil can persist and you can reapply it to yourself if you're not careful. So it is important that if you handle a super hot chili pepper, such as a Ghost, a Trinidad Scorpion, or the Carolina Reaper, you wash your hands immediately before touching anything. You don't want to transfer oils to a spatula, a camera remote, mixing bowl, whatever. You don't want to transfer those oils, then go and touch that item later and reapply the oils to your face when you go to wipe your eye. It hurts like hell. Don't do it. Now that our PSA is out of the way, let's get back to baking. So for the rest of our recipe, we're going to need 1 standard yellow cake box mix. As we've said before, we don't give a damn about brand. Buy the cheapest, buy what makes you happy. Buy American. I don't care. You're going to need 2 eggs. You're going to need 1/3 of a cup of oil. I'm going to use my sunflower oil. Feel free to use canola or vegetable. And we're going to use lemon juice, a 1/3 of a cup of lemon juice. Now, I have lemons left over from the failed lemon curd portion of this episode. I forgot to turn on the mic. It was bad. So I'm going to use that. You can feel free to buy the little lemon-shaped bottle of lemon juice that they sell in the produce department right next to the lemons. There's no need for you to squeeze lemons if you don't want to. So first, we're gonna get our wire mesh strainer, because we are going to sift our cake mix and get all of our lumps out. I'm going to sift that straight into a large mixing bowl. Okay, got my cake mix sifted. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is get the pepper off of my cutting board, because I need that to cut my lemons. So, you don't need to do it in that order if you're using the lemon juice. I just don't want to... I want to be very careful and not get capsaicin on me, because, again, you don't want to know that pain. Okay, so another one that doesn't feel great, especially if you're a line cook who just found out about a sensitivity to a certain brand of soap at work. Lemon juice. Open wounds. Wouldn't recommend it. So, I've got my lemon juice. I'm going to go ahead and pour my oil into that. And I am actually going to run mine through my strainer, but that is only because I use seeded lemons and I garden. Okay, so I've got my oil and my juice into my cake mix, along with my pepper. Grab my eggs. Now we just need to mix. Now this is one that you don't really want to leave laying around with batter on your beaters for somebody to come along and lick off. They might not appreciate the surprise. So I'm just scraping off everything into the mixing bowl. Because, well, Mitchell, I know you want as much of this as you can have. Okay. Now you can see tiny little red flakes in there. That's the pepper. It's all kind of mixed nice and even. next thing we need is a greased flat pan. I believe mine is actually a weird size. I believe it's actually an 8 by 12, but the standard 9 by 13 is what you really want. And you're just gonna, use your spatula and just scrape her in there and get her, get as much of it out of the bowl as you possibly can. Then you just want to spread it nice and even across the whole pan to all the corners. It's gonna be a little thin, but that's okay. It's a cake mix. It'll spread. And you might be asking why we didn't, if we're using the cake mix, why we didn't just add pepper to the batter and follow the directions on the box. That's because what we're making is actually more akin to brownies. That's why there's oil and 2 eggs as opposed to water and 3. So it's a little lighter on the liquids because you want it dense. You want it to cut into a square that is packed and keeps its shape, as opposed to cakes, which crumble. Okay, there's our pan. We're set to go. We're going to throw her in the oven, preheated to 350, and we are going to bake for 30 minutes. Don't be like me. Have the timer set up before you put the food in the oven. And there's our finished product. There you have it. That is our uranium yellow square, and it is best served with a nice cold dollop of homemade lemon curd.
There was a turtle by the name of Bert, and Bert the turtle was very alert. When danger threatened him, he never got hurt. He knew just what to do. He'd duck and cover, duck and cover. He'd hide his head and tail and 4 little feet. He'd duck and cover. He hid beneath his little shell until the coast was clear. Then one by one his head and tail and legs would reappear. By acting calm and cool he proved he was a hero too. For finding safety is the bravest, wisest thing to do. And now his little friends are just like Bert, and every turtle is very alert. When danger threatens them, they never get hurt. They know just what to do. They duck and cover, duck and cover. They hide their heads and tails and 4 little feet. They duck and cover. He hid beneath his little shell until the coast was clear. Then one by one his head and tail and legs would reappear. By acting calm and cool he proved he was a hero too. For finding safety is the bravest, wisest thing to do. And now his little friends are just like Bert, and every turtle is very alert. When danger threatens them, they never get hurt. They know just what to do. They duck and cover, duck and cover. They hide their heads and tails and 4 little feet. They duck and cover. They duck, 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 duck and cover.